Welcome, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Wendt, and I am part of the admissions team here at the Data Incubator. We are a fellowship placement and scholarship company. I am pleased to be joined with our excellent head instructor, Robert Schroll. We have a great session for you today where we'll be giving you some tips, tricks, and insider info to help you gain a full tuition scholarship for a data science or data engineering program. We'll help you master the coding challenge and also be sharing some of our best tips and suggestions for acing your TDI interview. To start things off, we will start off with some staff introductions, and then I'll give you a quick overview of our programs. Next, we'll explain exactly what a fellow is, and then we'll wrap things up today with a few tips on how to earn a fellow spot. Now, just to get some housekeeping items out of the way first, today's session is scheduled to last 1 hour, including our Q&A. All participants are muted to help speakers answer as many questions as possible. All questions should be submitted in the Q&A box. The chat box will be used for general announcements and resources, so please avoid using the chat box to ask questions for the panelists. If you have any questions that you'd like answered outside of today's session, you can always message us at admissions@thedataincubator.com. And a recording of this session will be sent to all registered attendees about 72 business hours after we conclude. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Rob so he can introduce himself.
Thanks, Elizabeth. My name's Robert Schroll. And as you may see from that picture, a couple things have changed since that was taken. I got into data science from the background of physics. I did a PhD in physics, a couple of postdocs, and then I finally admitted to myself I wasn't really having fun doing that anymore. So I took the background I had of writing computer code, doing data analysis in Python, decided to move over to data science. I've been teaching here at the Data Incubator for now almost 6.5 years. And I really enjoy helping people make that same transition I did. I know it can be a little bit scary at first, but there's definite benefits to working in an industry. Things move so much faster, things get done, and I really enjoy that. And I hope we get a chance to help you make that transition as well. I'll be talking a little bit about what we're looking for in students, but first Elizabeth is going to give us an overview of what the programs are actually like.
Thanks, Rob. So we are very excited to announce that for fall 2022 cohort, we have 3 data-focused programs that we're offering. We'll be offering our full-time data science fellowship program, our part-time data science fellowship program, and our new full-time data engineering program. So just to give you a sense of kind of what our programs are all like, so they are all intense. We have built our programs around really hands-on data-focused curriculums. So we offer both full-time and part-time programs, but both are packed with a lot of information and tools. All of our programs are also very thorough. Each week you focus on a different data tool or approach. And in addition to our lectures, our students participate in hands-on practice. We really believe in fostering an interactive learning environment. And so in each program, students are working on mini projects each week that focus on the data tools that they're studying. Additionally, our programs are very collaborative. We want students to not only work with their colleagues and instructors, but also have the opportunity to network and connect with our hiring partners. And all of our programs are also quite career focused. We have career coaches that help you succeed in transitioning into data focused careers. You'll learn how to present your best self by attending our career search workshops. And you'll also have the opportunity to work with #1 resume writing company to get you a polished resume and cover letter. And finally, all of our programs are interactive. So every student in all of our programs is provided a Jupyter server for the duration of the course so that students can follow along in the lecture and see and edit raw code that's being run. And students also receive immediate feedback via our interactive grader. So to go a little bit more in detail on our programs, here you have kind of an overview of our full-time data science program. You can see the week-by-week curriculum on the side. The full-time data science program lasts for 8 weeks with classes held daily. You can expect to spend about 40 hours per week in class and working on assignments. And if you have any questions about the curriculum, you can definitely email us at admissions@thedataincubator.com to get a more detailed overview. Here we have the part-time data science program. This part-time program lasts for 20 weeks with classes held on Tuesday and Thursdays from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For the part-time program, you can expect to spend about 10 hours per week working outside of class, and you'll also get office hours each week. With the part-time program, this is a nice opportunity because you really get the same curriculum and training as with the full-time program, but at a slower pace. So sessions are still live and instructor-led, so you're still able to interact with your instructor and ask them questions. And finally, we have here the full-time data science and engineering bootcamp. Again, the curriculum overviews on the side. This is also an 8-week program with classes held daily. It's kind of the same expectation in terms of time commitment as the full-time data science program. So about 40 hours per week in class and working on assignments. And again, if you would like a more detailed curriculum, definitely feel free to reach out to us at admissions. So our programs are really designed to help train academics for careers as data scientists and data engineers in the business world. Each student completes a capstone project that applies the data science tools they've learned to a real world problem of their choosing. This can be a great portfolio piece to add to your resume and showcase your ability to work with real world data. In our data science program, 88% of our graduates are working as data scientists or engineers within 6 months of completing their program, which is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Our graduates are also working in over 55 different industries, including software, IT, internet, financial services, biotech, and others. And we will post a link in the chat to our alumni outcomes page, just so you can see more about what our alumni are up to. To give you a sense of some of our hiring partners, we've listed a few here. This is not our full list, but just kind of a sampling. So you can get a bit of a sense of some of the folks you may be interviewing with if you join our program. So with all that background, let's get to what makes a TDI fellow. So if you're brand new to the Data Incubator program, you may be wondering, what is a fellow? So overall, we admit 2 types of students into our data science and data engineering programs. Fellows are offered tuition-free scholarships in our full-time programs. We offer a limited number of these scholarships to highly qualified candidates, and we'll outline exactly what that means over the next few slides. Fellows are expected to leave any current employment to attend our program and are expected to interview exclusively with our hiring partners. Scholars will pay tuition to participate in our program. They're not required to interview exclusively with our hiring partner network, and they may maintain their current employment. Scholars still have the same access to curriculum, resources, and tools as our fellow students. And I should note that full tuition scholarships are not offered for the part-time program. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Rob to kind of go through what makes a TDI fellow.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So how do we figure out who is going to be offered a scholar, who's going to be offered a fellowship position? Well, this is a list of things that would qualify sort of the ideal TDI fellow will have these things. Now, we don't expect that every single fellow is going to have all of these things. In fact, that would be rather surprising. But all the fellows we do admit, all the people who get the fellowship program, are going to be outstanding in at least one of the ways here. So a fellow, they may have a master's or PhD in a scientific or technical field. Generally, our hiring partners are looking for people coming from a technical background that have proven their technical ability. And one of the ways you do that is through your education. It's also good if you have solved real-world problems with data, either as part of a job you've had or in a research program. A fellow is likely comfortable with at least one programming language. We're not expecting fellows or anyone really to come in being a master programmer, but the best students are those that have at least familiarity with at least one programming language and are able and willing to learn additional ones as they go through. We're also looking for people who are looking to start a new job. That is the point of the fellowship program here, is to get you ready for your new position. And if you're not sure that you're trying to start a new job or not ready to start that new job right now, it's less ideal for that fellowship position. We also are looking for people who keep an open mind about where they're looking to go. Our goal is to get fellows placed, but if people are looking for a very specific position, it's harder for us to ensure that we can get that placement. So if you're willing to come in with an open mind, I think you will find that there's a lot of interesting problems in data science being solved out there, even in fields where you might not have thought you were going to be interested in it. One of the ways fellows stand out during the program is by completing a capstone project. This was mentioned briefly before, but this is a project of your own design where you come up with the problem, gather the data, analyze the data, and then present the result at the end. And this helps you show off to the hiring partners that you can do all of the parts of a data science job. So the best fellows are those that are going to produce outstanding capstone projects. We're looking for culture capable, so there is a coding challenge as part of the interview, or as part of the application process, I guess I should say. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that involves, but we're looking for good scores on that. And if you have previous work experience, that's definitely a plus. That helps your application, but it's not required. Our hiring partners do know that a lot of people are coming out of academia, and they are expecting that and looking for it. So we're not looking for all of these. As I said, we're looking for you to be outstanding in a couple of these. And as part of the application process, what you want to do is highlight this. Help us see which of the things that you have that match up with the list of things we're looking for in a great fellow. So why are we doing this? Well, I'll get down to brass tacks. The biggest thing we're looking for in fellow candidates is placeability with our hiring partners. Our goal is to get you placed in a job. So the people we're admitting as fellows are those that we think have the best, most outstanding chance of getting that job and getting that job as quickly as they can. So lots of the things we're looking for are just proxies for what our hiring partners are looking for. So what are they looking for? Well, technical ability, of course, but this is largely what we're teaching in the program. 8 weeks is a lot of time to cover a lot of subjects. So we don't necessarily need that technical ability coming in. We are teaching you that. And that's why the hiring partners are coming for us, because we can confirm that you know a certain baseline of skills. But hiring partners don't want just this. In fact, that may not be the most important thing they're looking for at all. They want people who will focus on practical and impactful problems. And one of the prejudices that people coming from academia face is that they're just these ivory tower thinkers who don't know how to solve real world problems. They are solving things that they think are interesting, independent of the actual application of it. So you want to demonstrate that you actually solve problems that are out there in the real world, as opposed to things that just happen to flit past your mind at some point. As I said, one of the things I like about the industry experience as opposed to the academic experience is how quickly things move. But that means you have to be willing to and able to learn very quickly in the work environment. And frankly, completing an 8-week program where you learn a whole new field is a great way to demonstrate this. These days, especially, many hiring partners are looking for flexibility in terms of where people work and what that environment looks like. A large number of hiring partners, large number of all companies now are doing some sort of remote work, but there's a variety of hybrid approaches. So being a little bit flexible and willing to try new approaches to working, especially in this pandemic environment, is going to be critical. But the most important thing that our hiring partners are looking for, and they tell us this again and again, both when we talk to them and also when we survey them, is not any of these technical skills, but it's the ability to communicate clearly, to take a technical subject and convey the important parts of that to non-technical stakeholders. And that's more important than any single technical skill that you can demonstrate. And in fact, you can try to demonstrate this. You should try to demonstrate this during the application process. So think about how you can convince us during the application process that you know how to communicate, and especially you know how to communicate with a non-technical audience. So that's what the hiring partners are looking for. That's what we're looking for. What does the actual process look like of trying to earn that coveted fellowship position? Well, it's going to start with a form that you fill out on our website that's basically giving us a lot of your biographical details. And there's a variety of reasons, a variety of things we're looking for here. First of all, our hiring partners are expecting a certain academic background, so we're checking for that. And it's also apparently a fair amount of information we have to gather for regulatory purposes, so we have to gather that as well. There's no decisions being made about fellows at this stage, but the information that you're providing at this stage is going to be used in that process later on. Specifically, you'll be asked to upload a resume. And think about how you're presenting all of your work here. Remember, we're looking for people who can communicate technical subjects to non-technical stakeholders. And your resume is part of that. So when you're talking about projects, make sure that you're focusing on the impact of that. Make sure you're explaining that in a way that a non-technical reader can understand. After you complete this first section, assuming that you meet the base academic requirements that we're looking for, which is mainly a degree, we'll move you on to our technical coding challenge. And this is a set of 2 technical challenges that we set up to judge your skills in the area. We're looking for you as a good fellow candidate to succeed in at least one of these. That said, many good fellow candidates don't succeed in both. And by succeed, we don't mean that you answer every single question exactly correctly. We're looking for progress in these as opposed to full completion. And there's no penalty for attempting these things. We'd rather you try something and give us a wrong answer than to skip something and just give us no answer. So please do attempt things, even though you might not know exactly how to solve the problems. So as I said, there are 2 parts of this challenge. The first is a data challenge, where we're going to give you a fairly large amount of data. We aim for enough data to be somewhat uncomfortable to load into a single spreadsheet, and ask you to perform some analysis and give us some answers about the information within that data. And the second part is a coding challenge, where we give you a puzzle designed to be solved by writing some code, and we want to see how you solve it. And in general, there's going to be a couple of different ways to solve this problem. There's not just one solution. You might have some cases where you do a simulation, or you build an approximation, Or if you're clever enough, you might realize there is a simpler closed form solution to go for. But we're not looking for one specific approach here. We're just trying to see, given a difficult problem, how do you attempt it? And we're looking not just at the answers, but your code as well. And that's because we have specific goals to see in this process. As I said, we're giving you more data than you're likely to be able to load into a spreadsheet easily. So we're asking, well, can you process this amount of data? If you're given a problem, can you define an algorithm to approach that? Especially if this is a problem you haven't seen before. The questions we're asking are not questions that we expect you to know the answer to. We're not expecting you to just write down that answer directly. Instead, we want you to take a look at the problem, propose an algorithm, try to implement it, and then fix it when it's doing something that maybe is not quite what you'd like. Some of the questions may be somewhat incomplete. We try to give you a good idea of what's happening, but we're not giving you step-by-step instructions, because that's how the real world works. You don't get step-by-step instructions. Sometimes you'll find incomplete specifications, and you're going to have to make reasonable decisions about what to do in those places. And we're looking for you to do that as part of the challenges as well. And finally, we are looking for people who write code that we would like to deal with. This is why we ask you to submit the code as well as your answers. In an academic environment, you're often working alone or perhaps just with an advisor. But in an industry environment, you're going to be working with a team. And the code that you write is going to have to be read and maintained by other people. So consider this as you're submitting the code. It's not just enough that it works, but you should also try to write code that's readable and maintainable by other people other than just you. Remember, of course, the next person to deal with your code may in fact be future you, so be nice to future you. And to reiterate, we're not looking for fellows to be excelling at every single one of these steps. Show that you have some capability in one of these areas, and we're going to teach you the rest as part of the fellowship program itself. If you could do all of these things perfectly at the application stage, frankly, you wouldn't need to come to the program with us. So after the coding challenge, we will invite the best candidates to our admissions interviews. This is a chance to get to know you in person, find out a little bit about what you're interested in, what you are attempting to get out of the program, and make that final decision about who's going to be offered the fellowship positions. This is conducted as a group interview over Zoom. And we bring in not just you along with an instructor and someone from the partnership team at TDI, but also a group of other applicants into the same interview together. And this is because we want to see not just who you are, but how you're going to interact with other students. After all, you're going to be spending a lot of time with us and with each other together. And we want to make sure that you will be a good fit for the program. As I said, it's about an hour or thereabouts over Zoom. We're going to want to know about your background, about the work that you've done, about research that you've done, about how you attack problems, about your interest and your desires in the field of data science. But we're also, as I said, looking to see how you interact with everyone else. So you will also have a chance to ask questions, not only of us, but perhaps as well of your fellow applicants as well. So come prepared and show that you're willing to work in this, this range, willing to work with other people, and will be a good colleague. So what specifically are we looking for? Well, once again, the big thing that our hiring partners are looking for is, can you explain technical topics to a non-technical audience? Number one thing that they're looking for. So that's what we're looking for as well. As I said, we're going to be asking about your past work. And even though you know that I am a data scientist, you should be trying to answer in a way that a general audience can understand. So don't get into the nitty-gritty of exactly how you program this algorithm. Tell us about the problem you're trying to solve, the general steps you took to solve it, and why that solution was a useful solution to come up with. Because after all, we're interested in people who are focusing on those real world actual problems, as opposed to theoretical concerns or trivial problems that are only interesting from some academic point of view. We're interested in seeing how you take a problem and break it down into pieces to solve those things. And as I said, you'll be working on a team in most industry jobs. We want to see how you've done that in the past. And perhaps you haven't had a whole lot of team experience. A lot of academic work is done with you and your advisor and perhaps nobody else. But think about places where you have worked on a team and be ready to talk about how that worked for you, as well as perhaps lessons you've learned and changes you want to do in the future. We're not expecting people to come with a lot of industry or corporate experience. Some of the applicants do, but we expect most of you don't have that experience. So we're not penalizing that, but you should be ready to try to explain to us why you think you're ready. What in your background has prepared you to move into an industry experience? So what do these interviews look like? As I said, they're handled here on Zoom. It used to be that this took a lot of preparation. Somehow in the past 2 years, everyone has gotten very good at Zoom, but still make sure that you're all set up and ready to go. Know how to use Zoom, know how to do all of those things there. If you want to share some additional information with us during the interview, we do that through the chat system. So have a link that you can drop in there that we can all open. We don't do screen sharing. We just find that solves or causes more problems than it solves. We're not expecting anything there, but if you did want to share something, make sure you have a link that you can share with them. Do try to use a real computer, not a cell phone. We want to see you full front and center, not bouncing up and down from that little cell phone camera. And try to find that stable internet access. Wired might be better. Wi-Fi tends to work pretty well, but you probably don't want to be doing this from the Starbucks or the Panera with everyone else competing for that, that bandwidth. When we invite you to an interview, you'll be able to schedule your interview through a web interface, which has a number of open sessions. And these spots are assigned first come, first serve. So do watch your email when it comes in. Try to get in and choose your preferred time first. I know a lot of people try to choose the latest time to give yourself the most time to prepare. But I have to say, as someone who has just gone through these interviews, by the end of the interviews, I get tired. So signing up at the beginning will keep me a little bit more fresh. So there is an advantage to trying to go early as well. We cannot extend these interviews past the times allotted. And that's because as soon as the interviews are over, we make our decisions and we let you know what those decisions are. We don't want to keep you guessing in the dark for any more time than we have to. So as soon as the scheduling interviews are over, we send out decisions. But that means we can't add additional times after the scheduled interviews. So be careful when you're choosing a spot there. Make sure you can make it. And a minor but important detail is all the times listed on the website are in Eastern time. So if you're in a different time zone, make sure you do that math in your head before you sign up for a slot. An important lesson of interviews, not just with us, but in general, is that everything is part of the interview. It's not just what you say in an interview, it's how you present yourself. It's what's happening as you're getting coffee beforehand or walking out to your car afterwards. All of that is part of the interview. Now, granted, it's not as complicated here with a Zoom interview. But again, all of what you're presenting is part of that interview. So take time to look professional. We're not looking for you to show up in a tuxedo. That'd be a little bit weird. But we are looking at you. We're seeing how you present yourself, and are you presenting yourself in a professional manner. Spend some time to prepare in advance. Set up your system with your microphone and your camera and your light, and record yourself. Does it sound okay? Is it muffled? Are there echoes? And I hope my environment is reasonably good here, so I'm speaking from a point of view of things that are working. Be ready to go. Don't rely on chance for these things. It helps to find a place with few distractions so that you can focus entirely on the interview and not have people running in the background or that Panera Bread employee coming over and trying to shove you off of that table. And we've told you what we're interested in, so you can prepare some talking points. We're looking to see the types of work you do. We're looking to see how you solve problems, what problems you like to focus on, and how your background has prepared you for data science. So think about that. Come prepared ahead of time with those talking points. Know the arguments that you're going to make. This is not a time for modesty. This is not a time to say, well, I tried to do some work and this didn't work. No, you are selling yourself to us. So be confident, come out, tell us why you should come be the best fellow that you can be. Now, as you generate these talking points, we don't want you, though, to come with a whole script where you read this presentation about how great you are and why you should hire. For two reasons. One is we really do want to get to know you as a person. And we get that much better when we're going back and forth with a discussion than if we just have you reading off a prepared speech. And secondly, if you start reading out that prepared speech, it's likely you're answering the question you thought you were asked and not the question that we actually asked. So while it's good to have talking points, bullet points ready to go to talk about, I don't want you just reading a speech that you prepared for us. That doesn't give the best impression. So that's what we're looking for. As I said, you are selling yourself. So think about what we're looking for. Figure out the best way to present how your background prepares you for what it is that we want. I'm going to hand it back over to Elizabeth, who will tell you a little more details, both about the financing options we have, as well as how this all turns into the next steps for you.
Great, thanks, Rob. So one of the questions we get a lot is if we have financing options, and the good news is we do. So I know a lot of you are aiming for the full tuition scholarship, but just so you know what options are available in case you don't get that, I'm going to walk through kind of a few of the options we have. So first off, we've partnered with Leaf to provide an income sharing agreement. This can be a great option for a lot of people. You get to participate in our program with just the deposit down, and then you're not required to make any payment until after you've graduated and are working and earning more than $40,000 a year. We also offer loans through Ascent. Ascent has three repayment options. There's deferred repayment, where you don't make any payments during the program or for 3 months after. There's interest-only repayment, where you're making small interest-only payments during the program and for 3 months after, and then you kick into full repayment. And then there's immediate repayment, where you begin making full payments 1 month after the program begins. Ascent offers 36-month and 60-month terms. And finally, for many in our part-time program, many companies are actually willing to sponsor or pay their employees to go through our program. This is really a win-win. So you get to learn great stuff in the evening and then immediately apply it to your job during the day. If this is something you think your company would be interested in, or you just like to share with them, you can definitely reach out to us and we will provide you with some information that lays out the program and the benefits to attending. We're also very excited to announce that we've launched 2 scholarships for our data science and data engineering programs for fall 2022. We'll be offering our new Women in STEM and Diversity and Data scholarships. So these scholarships really aim to remove barriers and provide opportunities for women, veterans, LGBTQ+ folks, and students from racial and ethnic backgrounds that are traditionally underrepresented in technical roles. So you can definitely take a look at our website on the scholarships page to see if this applies for you. Now, finally, I want to walk through some of the upcoming dates, just so you have them. So the fall cohort, the full-time program, will run from September 19th to November 11th. The part-time cohort runs from September 19th to February 3rd, 2023. If you'd like to apply, you want to be sure to apply by the deadline of July 29th that's the application deadline. And then you'd also want to complete the challenge by the August 1st deadline. So again, we do ask that if you apply, you submit your application by July 29th. And when you do, make sure you mention that you attended this session, and we'll give you a priority application review. After you submit your application, you have 72 hours to complete the challenge from the time you open it. The challenge deadline, as I mentioned, is August 1st. So one thing to note is that you can't complete the challenge unless you've submitted your application. Just in general, I do always encourage people to complete their applications and challenges on the sooner side before the deadline if they can, because this really helps you avoid any technical hiccups that might prevent you from submitting on time. We are not able to reopen the application or challenge after the deadline, so you really do need to have them in and complete by those deadlines. If you're interested in applying to our program, which I hope you are, you can go to the dataincubator.com/apply to submit your application. And if you have any questions about your specific situation, this presentation, or going through our application process, you can always feel free to reach out to us at admissions@dataincubator.com, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. And with that, I think we are ready to open it up to the Q&A. So let me just pull that up. Let's see. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, be sure to put them into the Q&A box. We have one here. So is there any benefit in having some data experience with non-professional projects, for example, hobbies, when you're looking at possible TDI fellows? If so, where does this come into play during the application process?
Yes, absolutely. It is an advantage. We are looking for your technical background, your technical ability, and whether you achieve that as part of an educational program or as part of a job or on the side on your own does not really matter. In fact, projects where you drove it yourself without any thought of remuneration are in some sense even more impressive. But we're not going to ask about this specifically. We're not going to say, tell me about your side technical projects that you work on as a hobby. Well, in part because not everybody has that. So think about those things ahead of time and then weave those into the stories that you're telling. So we're talking about projects that you've worked on in the past. It doesn't have to be something you worked on in school or that you worked on for a job. It can be a project that you worked on in off time. When you're talking about the skills or how you communicate, think about how you've done that with these 5 projects you've been working on. So it's up to you to bring these in as you're trying to convince us that you have the technical chops that we're looking for. But absolutely, they are great things to have if you have them.
Great. Another question that's come up is, are after working hours available for part-time scholars? So as we mentioned in this slide deck, which we'll share this presentation with you again after this session, so you can look through it again, that these part-time classes are scheduled from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it is built around the expectation that part-timers are probably working on other things, have other life commitments, maybe families, maybe school that they're doing during the day. And this is a program that they can do outside of the normal 9 to 5 working hours. Good question. Great. Okay. Another question. What's the difference between your data science and your data engineering curriculums? What's the difference? Okay. So let's start with that one and then
Start
we'll
with
do
that
the
one.
next
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
absolutely. All good questions. So first of all, a little bit of background. What is the difference between data science and data engineering? Data science is not an old field, but it's been around now for 10 years or so as a field that gives us the ability to analyze and extract value from large amounts of data. And when it started off, of course, data scientists were sort of alone managing this. And one of the things we've learned, especially in the last 2-3 years or thereabouts, is that it's not a just have somebody doing this. There's also a lot of work that has to be done around that in terms of preparing the data, getting it ready for analysis, as well as taking the trained products and putting them into production systems. And data engineers are the people who enable that. So it's a little bit less focused on doing analysis, more focused on managing, controlling both data and models that have been trained so that the data scientists' results actually have an effect. So the curriculum reflects that. The data scientists will spend more time learning some details of machine learning systems, more time focusing on things like visualization and communicating results to a general audience. Whereas the data engineers will spend more time learning about cloud systems, about databases, and about managing these large amounts of data into production systems. They do cover some of the same things. About half the curriculum is the same, some basics on data wrangling, some basics on machine learning, and some basics on Spark, a distributed computing system. But the other half is different, as I said, with the data scientists focus more on the analysis techniques, data engineers focus more on production and large-scale computational and cloud computational tools. We see a huge interest from hiring partners over the past year or two in data engineers, to the point where a number of our data science graduates have actually been picking up jobs that are technically entitled data engineers. So there's a big demand out there for that right now. And because it's such a new field, there's not a lot of people who are certified as data engineers. So that is a definite advantage. As for starting salaries, I think they're at least comparable. Elizabeth, I don't know if you have a better feeling for exactly how they compare.
That's a great question. What I can give you a little bit more information on. So the question is, what's the difference between starting salaries between data engineering and data science? And I can give you. So we collect information from our graduates on what salaries they're entering with. We can say that for the data science program, the average starting salary is, I believe, $125,000 per year. We have not had the data engineering program running long enough to really have clear outcomes data in that way, but it is something we're going to be tracking and having to share soon. I will say though that so that number, the 125,000, is an average. But we have seen more recently kind of a trend upward, a little bit higher starting salaries, but that might be reflective of the very competitive job market that is happening right now. So just to give you a sense kind of where they are. Another question in here. Sorry, Rob, do you have something to add?
I was just going to say the last part of the question is when they start. Yeah, the data science and data engineering boot camps run concurrently. And that's because, in fact, they do share some of this curriculum. And depending on student numbers, they may, in fact, be sharing classes and instructions for the first couple of weeks as well.
Great. Great. Okay, so one more question. Only fellowships are only for people who are in the full-time program, right? And that is true. That part-time, we do not offer fellowships for, but if you are in the full-time program, we are offering fellow spots for those.
And part of that is because we ask the fellows to work with us and only with us, our hiring partners during the job placement process, which sort of locks you up for the duration of the fellowship program, 2 months in the full-time one, plus a couple months afterwards. I forget what the current standard is.
It's about 3 months.
About 3 months. So roughly 5 months in all, we're asking you to only work with our hiring partners, which is a bit of a restriction. But for the part-time program, where the program itself runs over about 5 months, plus additional months after that, we don't feel right locking people down to just our hiring partners for that long of a time. So that's why we don't make that offer there, because we think that in the program, you're certainly welcome to contact our hiring partners. In fact, we encourage people who are not fellows to contact the same hiring partners that the fellows are. And the hiring partners do not know the difference. They see that you're admitted to TDI, and that's all they see. So you have those opportunities, but we also want the additional opportunities that you might have from other opportunities. I've said opportunities too many times in that sentence.
And sorry, I do just want to chime in really quick that if you do note that you're more interested in the part-time program on your application, you will still be considered for one of those fellow spots. But if it were offered to you, it would only be for the full-time program. So you would have the option to either attend full-time as a fellow or part-time as a scholar.
Yes, thanks, Molly. We are looking at everyone, and if we see a good fellow candidate who said they're the part-time, we'll reach out and say, hey, if we gave you this option for the full-time, would you join us there?
Great. Good point. Yeah. Great. Kind of a follow-up question on this. Are Canadian citizens eligible for the fellowship? And so I would say we look at all candidates who apply and complete all parts of their application for the fellow spots. In general, one of the things that Rob mentioned throughout this presentation is that we are looking for fellows for folks who are competitive for hiring partners. So people that will be easy to place in the hiring partner network. So Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that in general, it is, since many of our hiring partners or most of our hiring partners are US based, it's easier to be placed if you have authorization to work in the United States.
Yes, yeah, that's the big thing. It's not citizenship as much as work authorization. Yeah. And there's a number of options that you have for this work authorization. Those of you completing a degree have a option, in at least in many cases, of that OPT visa for a period of time. For the most part, hiring partners are aware of these things, and they will work with you to what's what I'm looking for, sponsor those visas. So that's what we're looking for more than citizenship specifically.
Great. Great. Another question. Do all full-time students, including non-fellows, so scholars, have to only apply to Data Incubator hiring partners? The answer is no. So fellows are committed to interviewing exclusively with hiring partners during the program and for 3 months after. Scholars have the ability, so scholars are the folks who pay tuition. Scholars have the ability, as Rob mentioned, to access all the hiring partners through the CRM or hiring partner database. So you can be reaching out to them, you can be interviewing with them, but you can also be, as a scholar, interviewing with non-hiring partner companies. So you could kind of get the best of both worlds in that way. Great. Okay, so last question, it looks like. When it comes to the part-time fellowship, are there any solutions for the time difference, like session recording, or do you have to attend in person on time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the part-time program, we record all of the sessions because we do recognize that if you're in the part-time program, it's probably because you have many other things competing for your time. So there will be recordings of all the sessions. They're made available usually within 24 hours of the session itself. There is a slight processing delay in there. It's not completely automatic. That said, I would encourage you to try to attend the majority of the sessions live. This is the big advantage of the Data Incubator over many of the other options out there, is that you have that live instructor where you can get that live feedback. You can ask questions of the instructor when you're confused. And please ask questions. But also the instructor is going to be asking questions of the students so that they can best judge what the students are understanding. And with the recording, you lose a lot of that advantage. So I think the question said that you were in European time, where this would be wee hours of the morning. Yes, so it would be a little bit tough. I'd encourage you to see if you could attend at least some of those sessions live, but knowing that if you do have to be up early the next morning, that you can skip a couple of them and watch the recordings later on to catch up.
Great. Great. So it looks like we have made it through all questions. Thank you all for attending today's workshop, webinar, I should say. And again, we will be sending out a recording of this within 72 business hours, so you can rewatch it at your leisure. Great. I think that's it for today. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. We look forward to seeing your applications coming in shortly.